We're following breaking news out of the National Football League where the Houston Texans have decided to move on from head coach David Culley. He's been fired after just one season in charge. That is according to our Josina Anderson. Houston went 4-13 in their lone season under Culley, winning just one of their final 8 games. That came in last week's Week 18 finale. They also ranked in the bottom 5 in both points and yards per game. Culley is the 7th NFL coach to be fired this season. As you take a look at the coaching changes thus far, a number of job openings, and you can now add the Houston Texans to that list. And let's now bring in our Josina Anderson, who confirmed this news. Josina, just a couple hours ago, we were talking about the Houston Texans and this coaching situation and what might be in store for David Culley in terms of his stability with the job. Are you surprised that the Texans have decided to move on from Culley at this point?
Not at all. Matter of fact, I was just doing Will Brinson's podcast as we were taping it, and a call came in from the Texans. Elected not to take the call because I thought it might have to do with something else. And I was in the middle of a live taping. And then nonetheless, the news came across. And then right away, I already knew what the call was about. But it's not surprising, to answer your question, because as I alluded to a week before, as I mentioned in the previous report, that I was not hearing anything definitive when I was asking, about the situation. And so that already lets you know that it was uncertain, though I would say weeks before that, there was talks of him returning and continuing on what this macro plan was. And all along throughout the Texan season, I would say at least up to maybe 2/3 of the way, that continued to be the talk, as far as, being very assured of the direction that they're going and what's in place, as far as just really resetting the organization with new life and coaches and personnel, and taking it away from all of the drama and everything that was going on with Deshaun Watson. It was around, I would say, maybe 3 weeks ago, which was the first time, I don't know that I have that exact, but around that I heard a different tone about, maybe, we need to, go back and reconsider and evaluate the situation. And I was like, okay, so there potentially will be a change. Usually when you hear that, a change is coming. A source said to me a few days ago that they had heard that it was 80-20 against. I did not want to say that as part of the report early because, when it involves someone's job, I try not to drop every last little nugget that I hear, but I know I heard that. And when you consider the candidates that are available, that definitely had a lot to do with it. I know that there have been, attempts to just kind of figure out the situation with especially the candidates that are connected to the New England Patriots. I know that. And obviously it makes sense with Nick Caserio, being there. And then, also just making sure what would, what candidate would take the job, what candidate would not take the job. I felt like, that was hinging on Culley's presence there and other candidates that you would consider that may take the job in comparison to all the other vacancies that are out there as well. And there are numerous. I do also recall that 2-3 weeks ago, I was doing a back and forth with an anchor here on CBS Sports HQ. And at that point, people were just talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Raiders, because obviously they had made it into the playoffs at that time as being the only two that maybe there would be another or whatever. And I said that there's a source that I talked to that's been involved in the league for 20-30 years who said it was definitely going to be more. This is someone that talks to all of the owners or what have you. And nonetheless, I think everything that he has said has come to fruition, with the exception of the one in Carolina. And oh, by the way, we have that interesting report from Jay Glazer, who is saying that Matt Rule now has to hire an offensive coordinator that is of some certain level, for that to even stay the way that it is. So all of this very interesting, happening in real time, though not necessarily obviously for David Culley, who by all accounts is a great person. They appreciate his work. I had asked last week if there's a potential for him to even stay in the organization despite the firing, if he would elect to do so. At that point, I was told that would be a possibility. Don't know if he would accept that. But you definitely couldn't say that you didn't particularly see this coming with the situation that they were in. It was, many could say that it was just a matter of time.
Josina, yesterday, John Mara, the owner of the Giants, said that they're going to take their time looking for a new head coach. Their general manager search already underway, but they wanted to do this right. They wanted to make sure they were evaluating everybody properly before deciding on a new head coach. When it comes to the Houston Texans situation, given the issues that they still have, you mentioned the Deshaun Watson situation, which still has not been sorted out. Do you expect the Texans to get a new head coach in place quickly, or do you also expect them to take their time?
Well, I know what was told to me, not necessarily what I expect, was that their philosophy is that they're not necessarily ever in a rush because, as what was said to me, that they feel who is intended for them will end up being who will lead the organization. That's just their mindset in general. That's not me, saying what I feel. I always relay the things told to me. So that's how they feel about it. Now, when it comes to being thorough, certainly this allows them to get in the game because the openings with the Jaguars and Minnesota and what have you, and some of these other places have already been underway. Now, you do get some time for yourself that gives you a little bit more time because some of these candidates can't even be interviewed relative to what teams they belong to and where they are in the postseason. Clearly, the coaches that belong to the teams that have the first round buys and or fired or just available because they didn't make the postseason can be interviewed now. Or the coach, like, for example, Leslie Frazier, involved in a Saturday game, can then be interviewed, on a Sunday. But because there's still some delay with getting to the entire candidate pool, that does buy you some time. Nonetheless, the organizations that have already started. But as we all know, in the NFL, back channels are always happening. So that's just the reality of what it is, though it's never obviously asserted in public because that would be, not what you're supposed to do.
The Houston Texans, the 7th NFL team with a coaching vacancy as of now. Our Josina Anderson confirming David Culley is out as head coach. Josina, thanks for hopping on with us here on CBS Sports HQ to cover this breaking news. The Emmy-winning Inside the NFL series has been going strong for well over 40 years since its debut in 1977. We've got it each and every week for you. James Brown alongside Super Bowl MVPs Phil Simms and Julian Edelman, Hall of Famers Ray Lewis and Michael Irvin, and 6-time Pro Bowler Brandon Marshall take you through in-depth highlights of the week's games, feature segments, and unique opinions based on their playing experience. Inside the NFL, streaming exclusively on Paramount Plus with new episodes every Tuesday night.